Let's return to the cyberware attack, the latest one that's been wreaking havoc around the world, including now here in Australia as well. Cybersecurity expert Simon Smith is with me now. Thank you very much for your time, Simon. What do we know about the impact, firstly, that this has had here in Australia?
Good afternoon, David. Well, basically, we know that it's hit three companies in Australia, one of them being a company that we don't want it to hit, which is Cadbury. It's essentially hit a large law firm and a courier service. How it's hit is essentially unknown, but it's assumed to be similar to the WannaCry vulnerability through Samba or SMB. And also it comes with a bit of an extra bite. It comes with the ability to basically corrupt the master boot record of your computer. So in actual fact, that's quite nasty. It means that you won't be able to turn your computer on either. And there is no kill switch on this one, unfortunately, David. This one, effectively, they've also disabled the email address that you would send Bitcoin to. Not that I would ever send a criminal money, but certainly.
No, and I want to come back to that. I want to come back to what you should or shouldn't do, but just on those that have been hit in Australia, you mentioned there, in all of these cases, is it their international parent companies that have been hit? It's not like Australia has been targeted in any way.
It does not look like that. No, definitely, that's correct, David. I think that it's very minimal in Australia. I don't believe that there's been a lot of companies at all. Very minimal. In fact, I cannot see, technically speaking, from looking at the technology and being in the industry for 27 years, I cannot see how it would spread unless there was some physical intent in somebody putting it or planting it there.
Now, how does it differ, or how is it similar to the previous one that's, a month or so ago, the WannaCry ransomware attack? And I know you looked very closely at that one. Are you able to say yet what differences, what similarities there are here?
Yes, well, it's using the same exploit. So, in one way, there was quite a lot of strange, phenomenal areas about the WannaCry virus, the vulnerability, the very original one. One of the strange things about that was, how did it spread so fast? It used an exploit in Windows that Microsoft patched eventually, and that was that Samba, which is a file transfer protocol, was open, and I still can't to this day believe how fast that spread and how it persuaded itself to favour healthcare. It just doesn't make sense. But in this case, what this has basically done is it's similar to it's basically been said to have used the same sort of vulnerability, but it must be also associated with phishing. Like, people must be getting an email. It is reported to have been used or found in particular emails, Word documents, or fake Word documents that people click on in an email, and that could really be the only way that it could be spread so fast. But even then, there's been no reports in Australia of that at all either. So these three companies, I'd be looking close, and I'd definitely say, David, in the next week or so, we'd probably know what the relationship between these three companies are as to how they got it and nobody else did.
Well, it's a very good question, and so is the question, where has it come from? Did we find out anything about that previous one? Was it narrowed down, and did you have your own theories on where it came from and where indeed this one might be coming from?
Well, I investigated the previous one and I tracked it back through all of the sources. I actually did a reverse trial on the email. There's a lot of Tor, onion routing. So everybody used VPNs and tried to hide their IP addresses. I gave that information out to the public, and it kind of all led back into America, essentially, and I did see a bit of activity in India, but the data is there for the government, and I gave intelligence to the NSA and to the FBI, for them to go to VPN providers and to essentially take the data and ask who connected at this time. And they could have easily got that information. So I'm sure that they know deep down internally in the government exactly who's responsible. But now there's criminals that are copying them.
But just on what you've said there, and presumably they did follow all of that up, when you say you tracked it down to largely coming from American sources, is that necessarily where this originated previously, or does that mean it came via the United States, via someone in the United States?
Well, it came via VPN. So essentially, America's FBI had the ability to know exactly the original source because they could have gone to the VPN providers and asked those providers exactly for connection logs. And now, the myth that VPNs don't collect logs, maybe they don't collect traffic logs, but they do have connection logs for their own abuse policies. So they could have easily got that information and intelligence, and they definitely would know that. But we've got to remember that this whole exploit came from the NSA, effectively, and it was released, and the shadow brokers effectively took that information and sold it. So this was intelligence that was actually classified at the very start. So everybody knows that this information was actually originally government information in the first place. So the whole world effectively did have a chance to look at these exploits. So now it's fair game for everybody in the world, effectively. So all the cyber criminals effectively are now jumping on the bandwagon. So now it could be anyone.
Frightening prospect. Simon Smith, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much for bringing us up to date and for the work you do. Appreciate it. We're going to hear more from Dan.